You're listening to Season 3 of Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast. I'm Kimberly Evans, and I've been planning events, workshops, retreats, and socials for almost 20 years. After working with so many incredible clients and entrepreneurs, and personally experiencing hardship in life and business, I've discovered how powerful our mindset and purpose is in creating a life of joy and celebration while having a whole lot of fun along the way. Join me with a coffee or cocktail as I connect with inspiring leaders, entrepreneurs, tastemakers, and extraordinary people as they share their journey in life and business and how they are striving to live a life of purpose. Your fears and beliefs in yourself will be transformed as you work towards creating the best version of yourself from the inside out. You're in good company. Cheers to celebrating simple life. Today on Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast, I'm chatting with Kim Deschamps, owner of Holistic Physiotherapy and Wellness. Her vision is to educate and empower the community to take charge of their health and well-being. As a physiotherapist and yoga therapist, she wants to share the blissful union of physiotherapy and yoga for rehabilitation, injury prevention, optimal health, and well-being. In the past 4 years, she continues to expand her professional practice and integrative healthcare team, which also includes Naturopathic Medicine, Pelvic Health, Chiropractic, massage therapy, yoga therapy, acupuncture, and healthy living workshops. Her clinic's unique approach to rehabilitation and healthcare allows her team to design their assessments and treatments in a way which allows for a thorough understanding of the whole person, so they can design a holistic health and wellness treatment plan that meets each person's individual goals. We are chatting all about the importance of mental and emotional health alongside our physical health, and I am so certain that you are going to be inspired as you listen to our conversation today, so tune in. Hello, Kim. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
And great name, of course. Kim and Kimberly podcasting today.
It's perfect.
Right?
Yes.
I'm so happy to chat with you today. And I just want to dive right in because I feel like talking about mental and emotional health, we could talk for the rest of our lives about this and still there's just such a broad range of things, but I know this conversation today is just going to resonate with so many listeners. So I would love, first of all, before we dive into all of that, I would just love to hear more about how you got started as a physiotherapist and what led you to opening your amazing holistic physiotherapy and wellness clinic that you have today.
Well, to start off, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm really excited to share. Also nervous, which is a good feeling too, because it always drives me to explore the unknown, to try something new. So I do like this feeling times.
I love that.
Yeah.
So harness it for energy instead of harnessing it for fear.
Exactly. And what was so interesting was last night when I was kind of wrapping my head around, okay, I'm going to be talking about mental health and emotional health and possibly sharing my personal journey. And all of a sudden my throat got really dry and my voice got raspy and cracking. And being that I'm quite aware of what my body is trying to tell me. And I am a yoga therapist, so I understand the throat chakra was just a raging last night because I was going to be talking truth. And it was kind of like an excitement, nervous feeling. And so I spent a lot of time surrounding my throat chakra over the last 12 hours. And I'm happy to share about that too. So that's just kind of a little piece of information that I wanted to start off by sharing is that when we have these thoughts and feelings, how it can physically make a response in our body, which is
I love that you are starting off with this. I love that you're starting off with this because I feel like that takes body awareness to a whole nother level to be I think we can be aware when there's oh, I have a headache. Oh, my stomach hurts. Oh, and you don't necessarily always know what or why to attribute these things to. You just know
and most of the time, I think a lot of us are just like, oh, well, that's just like, is what it is. Like you aren't really digging really deeper into the reason as to why maybe this might be happening based on what's happening around you or something that's happened during the day or for 1,000 reasons. But I love that you just addressed that you were actually able to identify that as something that maybe was coming up about sharing your truth, because I think that even when we have like hard conversations with somebody, or we have something really great happening, something not so great happening, whatever the case may be, those little tiny responses can all add up for us to like just feel not necessarily ourselves. And I think it's so easy to push it away rather than actually saying, you know what, I'm going to address this even if it's uncomfortable.
Totally. I love how you said that, to address it even though it's uncomfortable, because we often don't get fearful, and one might think, oh no, I'm coming down with a cold. We're going to do a podcast. My voice is cracking. And then the anxiety starts snowballing and, oh, I need to reschedule. And then you shy away. So it's, but if you can notice these little subtleties or whispers that your body is telling you, sometimes I always tell myself and my patients is it's okay to smirk at what your body's doing and be like, yes, I see what's happening here.
I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm going to do what my self-care plan is to help calm what you're feeling right now. So
that is amazing. Well, I could take you down a whole rabbit hole here because I have 100
totally.
questions about this, which we will spin back around to. Obviously, you are very passionate about what you do. So how did you decide to get into physiotherapy when you were making decisions about your future?
Totally. So, oh man. Okay. I think it goes back to way back when I was a figure skater. So I grew up figure skating. I was in the figure skating world in my well, yes, I started when I was like 4 years old or something, but quite competitive, and in my adolescent years, traveled for competition, summer skating school. I even made the SAS first team in my younger years.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is a little new thing about me. So taking care of myself and recovering from injuries was a big thing, and I actually trained 3 or 4 times a week in the afternoons and 2 to 3 mornings before school. So physical activity and imagery and all of those mind-body connections was super important as a competitive figure skater. So I always was kind of tuned in. But when it came to picking a career path, I really had no idea. I got a scholarship to U of A out of high school, went there to do basic sciences. I'm not going to lie, it wasn't my favorite, but I went to Edmonton because I got a job as a figure skating coach. I'm also a certified figure skating coach, and I volunteered with the Special Olympics and taught children with autism how to skate. Yeah, so I absolutely loved my experience with the Special Olympics program, and I knew in that moment that I wanted to work in healthcare and specifically rehabilitation. So then the next phase was, well, how do I do that? Where do I go? There's so many options in healthcare. So I started researching and came across a program at SciAS, which is now Polytech, but the program was out of Regina. And it was the Occupational Therapist Assistant, Physical Therapist Assistant program where I started and graduated from that program in 2006. Started working in the field a little bit casually, mostly in neuro rehab, which was really fascinating because I love the nervous system. And it was then that I had a couple of mentors and physios that I worked under, and they were like, you need to go back to school. You need to be a physio. You're thinking like a physio. And so I went back to school. And
good for you. That takes some courage.
It does, because that was the year they made a master's program. So I had to buckle up and do a whole undergraduate and then apply into a master's degree, which I did. So I did a bachelor's degree in kinesiology at U of R, and I graduated with great distinction and a major in adapted physical activity. So I was really interested in physical and developmental disabilities. And shortly after, I applied into the Master's of Physical Therapy program. Spent 2 very, very, very hard years in graduate school. All of my peers, I think, were forever bonded because we made it through.
You're right to still talk about it.
Yeah, it's very challenging, but it got me to where my career is, and so I'm very grateful for it. But throughout all of my school, I felt like there was always something missing. I was always searching for something, another piece to why I went into the medical field in the first place, and physiotherapy specifically. And so in my one cardiorespiratory class, we had a guest lecturer, and her name was Shelley Procco, and she's one of my dear friends and mentors and colleagues now. And she is a physiotherapist and yoga therapist, and she was sharing to our class how yoga therapy is a blissful union of the mind-body, bringing in spiritual components, and essentially introducing the thought that, hey, we should really be thinking about the whole person in rehabilitation. But most specifically, I think we should be doing that in all of the medical system. But for this discussion, we'll talk about physio. And anyways, I listened to her, and there was this incredible emotion that came over me where I was like, yes, this is it. This is what I want to do. So after the presentation, I went straight up to her after class, and I was like, how do I do what you do? Like, where do I go to get this training? How do I learn? How do I build this whole mind-body practice? And essentially this model called the biopsychosocial model, which I'll tap into later on. And she's just the sweetest woman, and I believe she might have even hugged me because she was just so warmed at me coming up and saying what I did say. And she told me about the Professional Yoga Therapy Institute in Emerald Isle, North Carolina. And she introduced me to Dr. Ginger Garner, who's the founder of the Professional Yoga Therapy Institute. She is a doctor of physical therapy and a yoga therapist. And so she has done so much research and has put together this whole program, medical therapeutic yoga. So it's for health professionals who will utilize yoga as a way to assess and treat the individual sitting in front of us. And so we look at the whole person. So there's all aspects of the human being. It's not just the body. It's not just the mind. It's bringing in intrapersonal and interpersonal development and intellectual pieces. It brings in spirituality. It brings in emotional and social health. We even talk a little bit about financial health. So you can see how there's many factors that can or should be talked about in health and wellness, and especially in rehabilitation. So I dove into this huge program right after graduation. I took my first job as a physiotherapist, and I worked along through amazing physios and learned a ton from them. But I also kept working at this yoga therapy program. I went down to North Carolina 3 separate times for a week, all-intensive courses, and then there was 13 modules of home study, exams, a big project, and I finally graduated in 2018 with my professional yoga therapy designation.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's my biggest, or my second biggest accomplishment, I guess, is really diving into that at such an early point in my career. So I was always interested in holistic healthcare, and all of my continuing education to date has been surrounding the biopsychosocial model. So I've trained under Shelley Procco and Neil Pearson in pain care yoga, where it is on us treating the sensitized nervous system, chronic pain, and how it is important to look at the whole person. Pelvic Health physiotherapy, that's all biopsychosocial as well. There's so many factors that we have to consider as pelvic health physios. And then the question is, well, why isn't this addressed more so for every aspect? It shouldn't be separated. Pelvic physios and orthopedic physios, sports physios, all of us need to be looking at the whole person in order to successfully treat the individual in front of us.
Well, isn't it just like, you must find this even more unbelievable because I'm not even in this field, but just as a human being who works really hard to do personal development and to do the things that I know for myself, keep myself mentally and emotionally as well as I can be feeling, it must just mystify you as a medical professional that this isn't something that sort of, I know everybody has their own train of thought as to what works best, and this is by no means pushing anyone's agenda to go any direction. You just, the point of this all is to figure out for yourself what makes you feel your best. And there is 1 million ways to come about that. But it's so surprising to me that anything would ever be sort of isolated to just one thing. Like, we are human beings, and it's just, it seems almost like impossible that one thing wouldn't affect the other when you are looking at your whole being to stay well.
It's so true. And all of the alternative medicine practitioners, whether that be Ayurvedic, Naturopathic Medicine, meditation practitioners, acupuncture, all of them look at the whole person. It's this biomedical model that treats the sick person that we tend to be stuck in. I'm very, 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 very thankful for the biomedical system in those acute stages. If I'm in a car accident, I'm going to want a surgeon that knows how to treat me in an acute state to save my life. But when it comes to chronic conditions and persistent pain, mental health issues, all of that, we need to be really working at a collaborative team and be looking at the alternative medicine to help treat the person, not the disease.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, from personal experience, having a child that has a chronic illness, I feel like I just have seen the healthcare system in such a different way, having been on the inside of having so many experiences that feel very challenging and also amazing, but like seeing that the ones that have been sort of working the best is when it is collective as a team. And that's when you really feel heard and understood, and when you can feel like you can explain what is going on with no judgment or no, hey, like this is what's going on, and I'm not asking for a quick fix. This is just the reality of the situation. What can we do or try? And I'm always so pleased when there's variety of options presented, because unless you're being presented with options that maybe have a life and death situation to the most options are not that, and you try them, and if you don't feel like it's working for you, then we move and pivot in another direction to try to keep figuring it out so that you can live well.
Absolutely. And that's what my whole vision was for starting my journey on my own. Like I worked under a person or a company for 2 years, I think. And it was like I finished the December of 2015, and I started 2016 as, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go out on my own. I'm going to be the person that everybody's like, are you crazy? You're so young in your career. And I'm like, I want to create the job that I want. I want to create the practice that I want. And so I did it.
Challenge accepted.
And I did. I think my mom and dad would both be like, oh, when she wants something, she'll dig her heels in until she gets it. And I did. And so I started where it was just me. And I worked out of my home. I went to people's homes and I rolled a large duffel bag along with me with all my yoga and treatment supplies and a portable massage table And that's where I started. And then I rented a yoga studio space to start my therapeutic yoga classes. And then I started getting a greater following. So I actually developed a yoga studio and treatment space out of my home. And then I went on my first maternity leave, and that's when I decided, no, I need to grow out of my space. I had a few people kind of contracting under me at this time, and we were working together to kind of build the practices that we want. And it was during that first maternity leave where I was like, actually, I don't just want to do physiotherapy and yoga. I want an interdisciplinary healthcare clinic in the city. And so during my maternity leave, I revised my business plan. I found a clinic space, which is where we are now on Broadway Avenue. Went through renovations. I hired an administrator, so my first employee, and I opened the clinic on May 1st, 2018.
Wow!
Yeah, and then it's crazy how much we've grown since. I am blessed to be surrounded by a group of women practitioners who are just as passionate about health and holistic health and wellness as I am. We now have 3 physiotherapists. We're all pelvic health physios, a massage therapist, a chiropractor, and a naturopathic doctor. And to help us all out, we have a 3-person admin team. So that brings us to a total of 9 on our team now, and it's unbelievable. So we just had our second birthday at this space, and we're just thrilled to share what we're building and brewing for 2021.
That is so amazing. And especially with the way that 2020 has gone very differently than anyone could have predicted when we were popping champagne bottles January 1st of this year, all clueless as to be what was about to hit us a couple weeks, months later. It's so incredible. And I feel like it's interesting too, because I think that the mental and emotional health piece of things, obviously in the last number of years, I think everybody that sort of pays attention to what's going on around them and in the world would definitely be able to recognize how much more conversation and awareness and attention is being brought to the idea of the importance of just being mindful and aware of your mental health. And I want to just clarify, when you and I are talking about mental and emotional health here,
yes,
we are speaking to mental wellness and just being in tune with yourself and making sure that you are feeling as healthy as you possibly can, mind, body, and spirit. We are not speaking to diagnosed mental health conditions and other things that have their own wellness plan and care and attention that has to them. Talking about this as a whole, as if every single human being needs to be mindful of their own mental health, because we all do. That's I think sometimes a little bit of confusion, right? Where you think mental health means that you are diagnosed with a condition or something, and that can be the case for some people who need to work through a diagnosis of mental health, just like any other type of physical condition that could come upon somebody. But mental wellness and health is just all of our own state of mind that we all need to be mindful of. Does that sound accurate? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I am a firm believer that it would be amazing. I think we're moving in that direction, that mental health and wellness will be just as easy to talk about as physical health and wellness.
I'll get back to the show in 20 seconds, but I wanted you to be the first to know about the new event I've created just for you. The Curated Content Social is a networking photo shoot that simplifies the content that you need to show up authentically on your social media. Imagine gathering together with a dozen amazing business owners to connect, grow, and learn more about each other's businesses while having a fun night out. And it's all photographed. This event only happens once a month and tickets sell out fast. This is all about helping you to create an abundant mindset to thrive in business and show up just as you are. To join in the fun, visit celebratingsimplelife.com to save your spot or connect with Celebrating Simple Life on Instagram. All right, friend, back to the show.
I think it should be that everybody has a mental health practitioner in their court that they can, talk about things, talk about their emotions and what they're feeling, and because they're the ones that have the tools to provide you with, whether it be exercises or practices to help move you and guide you in the direction to feel more balanced. So we're connected as a team to many mental health practitioners in the city, and we call upon them when we need, and we refer out. But what we absolutely strive at doing is we're okay with having those uncomfortable conversations and sitting in the uncomfortable moments with the person sitting in front of us and listening and listening for certain flags or certain comments or things that would turn a light bulb in our head, being like, oh, we need to introduce them with so and so and bring that person onto the team, or encourage them to reach out for mental health support, talk therapy, for example.
Yeah.
So by no means can one health professional do it all. We have to work as a team.
Well, don't you find, though, that we've just sort of been trained in our Western thinking that that's sort of like, that's just how things happen here. Like before sort of holistic care and wellness and all of those things became as prominent and sort of available out there as it is today, like I think of it as, in my own example, again, with Cassidy, her being diagnosed with cystic fibrosis and us having a full clinic team of medical professionals, from psychiatrist to social worker to dietitian to respirologist to nurse to physiotherapy to all of the things that are required, the other, and then getting referrals to other things above and beyond, and doing our own due diligence of just being aware of what else we need to incorporate into her health plan. That was the first time in my life, which was only 8 years ago, that I was aware that that's even possible in our medical system. Yeah. I've never had experienced that for myself before with any doctor or anybody, where I haven't had any type of medical needs that are out of the ordinary in my life. But I was never referred to somebody. I at a time would go and talk to a doctor and be like, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling stressed, I'm like wondering if I'm like not coping with anxiety or something, right? And it was more so like just try to remove the stress from your life. Like there was never really any push towards, do you want a referral to go talk to somebody? This is somebody that I would recommend. And I just think that is such a unfortunate disservice because it's hard to find the right people to be on your team. Yes,
for sure. And I have to give credit to our medical system, because for chronic condition management and support and disease, they're doing a much better job at pulling in multiple health professionals. However, I feel as though one should be that team should be there sooner before it's
a situation.
Yes, exactly. So for your example, when you were talking about going, as an example, going to the doctor and sharing that you feel you're not coping with anxiety or whatever that may be, that's that piece, or that's that time when an integrative healthcare clinic thrives, in the sense that we listen to those whispers to prevent greater issues later. And so
I just got some goosebumps when you said that. Like, I think that's so important, because you as an individual want to listen to yourself, but knowing that somebody like you and your team also is there in like a listening capacity, that's huge.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's important. I came across this one quote, and I don't have it next to me right now, but and I think we'll share it on social media at some point, but it's how important it is or just to kind of imagine how wonderful it would be if a person listened as passionately as they wish somebody would hear them.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah,
like,
totally.
when we're talking, we want somebody to listen to us, right? And we're so passionate about what we're saying. But how great would it be, and what a wonderful world would we live in if we sat in those moments and truly listened with passion.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think that's so amazing, and kind of leads right into the next thing that I wanted to ask you was, I know that you have been like discussing like emotional and mental health from like within your practice, and we've had conversations about this, but you mentioned to me that you were reading the book Permission to Feel. And I would love to hear more about this, because I feel like, first of all, I love having book recommendations and being able just to pass on names of books if people are interested in seeing if it would be a fit for them. But Permission to Feel is just talking a lot about like even just the processing of emotions. And they have a certain mood meter and method and all of these things that just seemed like it sort of gave a little bit more of a tangible approach to kind of becoming more emotionally intelligent rather than feeling kind of like a hard concept to understand. So tell me a little bit about what you gleaned out of this book and how being more emotionally intelligent could be a positive thing for somebody to have in their life.
Yeah, no, fantastic question. I was this month I was the lead for picking the book in book club, and this particular book was on my radar. And I don't know how many read the book, but it's kind of me nerding out because I'm like, if I'm going to read a book, I either want a good fiction book that allows me to escape into my imagination.
Yes.
Or I want to learn something, and I want to learn hard skills that I can apply right away. And so that's why I picked this book, and I just dove in, and I was like, these big aha moments. So Mark Brackett, he's the director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, and he's been on this great mission of integrating emotional intelligence within the school system to help teachers and subordinates and those in higher decision-making positions to teach them about emotional intelligence so that they can integrate emotional intelligence for children so that they develop into human beings, they are human beings, to develop into adults with greater emotional intelligence for coping strategies. And anyways, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I'm going to be the best mom ever. I'm going to set things up for my kids.
My kids still have a chance. They're so little. I can just implement this all.
Totally. My kids are going to be so emotionally intelligent. But I kept having these aha moments because as a yoga therapist, psycho-emotional health is a big part of the holistic program, it's the model that we use. And we use the acronym RULER, which I'll talk about just in a second, of recognizing emotion and so on. And it just kind of made this like snowball effect in my brain of, well, why isn't emotional intelligence taught in medical professions? Why isn't emotional intelligence something that we talk about as a community? And it just kept going on. And I was just like, whether we as individual professions have it built into our program, at least we could say, this is a thing. This is something you're going to want to explore as you work with human beings, because we all feel like there's such a disjointed piece there. Because I feel like the personal development that I've done and professional development that I've done and I continue to do is I want to feel more comfortable with the person sitting in front of me to have those conversations where they're feeling the pain. They're trying to express what they're feeling, and instead of shying away from those conversations because I don't have the tools to help move the conversation effectively or know who to refer to, I took it upon myself to educate myself, and I feel like we need to have that piece in our healthcare system because it is so easy for one to shy away from that conversation if somebody were to start talking about anxiety and depression, for example.
Oh, 100%. And I think that when because we are all human beings, we all have the ability to feel in many similar yet different ways, and emotions present themselves differently for so many different factors that I feel like even from when, like even looking at my kids from when they're younger, like they fall and hurt themselves, and my one daughter would be totally fine to just like let all the feelings out and just break down and it's a big thing. And the other one clams right up and cries on the inside because she doesn't want anybody to see that she's been hurt. So like these things of just from even those like minuscule examples that aren't sort of like really big situations in life, but things like that, all of those things, don't you find that there's just all of those experiences add up to what we as grown-ups then tell ourselves what is and isn't okay to be able to show and express in our feelings?
Yes, for sure. And I think it has to start with us, right? Like we have to dive into it and figure out why do I struggle with recognizing what my mind and body is trying to say. And so like the Mark in the book, he talks about the acronym RULER. So R stands for recognized. So that's like recognizing that essentially what emotional state or what you're feeling. And are you able to then understand or be an emotional scientist, as he says, understand what's causing it? Like, why am I feeling this way? What could have triggered this feeling? And then be able to label it. So understanding the emotional vocabulary. Gosh, there's like, many.
Totally. And I saw some of the charts online as I was like looking into this book after you mentioned it to me, and just of how to sort of even identify like which emotion you're feeling and which quadrant you're in and how those relate to others. But is this something then like with this, I want to hear the rest of the ruler method, but with this R even, from the first letter of the method, is this something that is meant as something is either coming up as a in the moment type feeling of emotion that you're having, or something is just lingering in the back of your mind and you sort of have this ongoing thought process towards maybe a certain specific situation or something good or bad that's happened. And you're supposed to kind of, what I hear you saying is like it's almost more of a learning how to be still and process and take a step back in order to have the ability to identify your like response to it, rather than an initial reaction that can probably 99% of the time go very sideways because we're humans.
Right. No, for sure. So I feel like in that question, there's like recognizing it in an acute situation, but then also recognizing what's stuck in your body and what might be causing that persistent pain, for an example, or disease. So we know that thoughts trigger emotion, and motion triggers a physiological state or reaction in the body. So, for example, if for this podcast, me recognizing that I'm feeling perhaps some anxiety, some nervousness, excitement, and noticing what that's doing to my body, realizing, okay, this is stimulating my central nervous system to be in that fight-flight mode. how can I organize my thoughts about changing that mindset to be more of a positive thing versus letting it trickle down into something negative. And so
Right.
being able to notice it and recognize it, process it, and then move on from it. So,
okay, so I love this example that you're using of yourself, because I think this is so easy to understand and identify with, especially using just like a basic example that can really be like added on to anything else that someone might think of as an example for themselves. So do you want to go through the rest of this,
Sure.
the ruler, and use
Mm-hmm.
this example and keep sort of talking through as if what the process would be all the way from the R all the way to the end of the acronym?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I think that's a fantastic way to explain it all. So with, so we'll use, I'm feeling the anxiety deep in my gut. So that was what I was originally feeling. I started noticing that my throat was getting dry and constricted. I was feeling anxious and a little bit of imposter syndrome, as that could be a whole other
yeah, we'll do
worms.
a whole nother episode on that aspect of our
Right?
emotional health. Yeah.
But to sit in it and recognize, okay, I'm recognizing that I'm having these emotions, and I'm recognizing that my mind and body is having these reactions. So at this exact moment, I said to myself, what is my emotional state? What am I feeling? And so I sat with it, and I thought, okay, I'm feeling some anxiety, but I'm also feeling excitement. Is it more excitement? Because excitement and anxiety can sometimes mirror each other, right? And so instead of shying away from it, I was like, no, I'm excited. I'm excited to share my passion. I'm nervous because I'm in the postpartum brain right now. Nervous a little.
Again,
but,
whole other episode, right?
right? But so that was that recognizing. And I listened to what mind and body was saying. And then I started understanding the piece. So that's the U in the ruler. So being that emotional scientist, why am I feeling this? What's causing it? And that's where we could tie in a little bit of the fear that I was going to stumble on words, maybe, the fear that I would forget what I was wanting to talk about and freeze. So it's just kind of exploring, like, why am I feeling the anxiety and what's causing it? What could be triggering these feelings?
In the you, then, in the understanding, at no point in the recognizing or the understanding of the first two letters that we've walked through so far, you're never telling yourself, don't feel this way. You're not
Absolutely
trying to get rid of it. And that's, I think, like, I do that all the time. I think that's like a natural thing, right? Like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. Why? Like, instead of the understand, it's sort of just the under the rug.
Yeah, totally.
Sleep it out, right?
I think many people would use that as a defense mechanism of just, I can't have negative emotions. Well,
it's wrong
no.
to be feeling like this.
Yeah, well, absolutely not. We need to have those emotions, right? That's what makes us human. And because, like, we are going to feel sadness, we are going to feel anger, we are going to feel depression and despair and everything because of the environment that we're in or what's happening within our life. What comes down to it is how do you express it and regulate it, so we can move on through there. So from the next stage, it's the labeling of your feelings. So putting your feelings into words. And so he talks about broadening your emotional vocabulary. So are you sad? Are you feeling unfulfilled? Melancholy? Are you feeling content? Contentment is actually a feeling. There's so many of them. Like, for example, are you feeling discouraged, lonely, frightened, secure, satisfied, grateful, lively, energized, and the list goes on. And so Mark talks about that there's emotions that fall in the red color, and those would be kind of your I guess the high energy ones being on the negative emotions. So that might be enraged, frightened, angry. And then there's the yellow side of things. So still high energy, but more on the positive side. So that's being cheerful, lively, happy, proud, hopeful, playful. Then there's the blue color of emotions, and that's when you're getting into the low energy and low pleasantness. That's the sullen, tired, fatigued, sad, despairing, hopelessness. And the list goes on there. And moving into the green side of things, that's low energy but high pleasantness. So this is where you're feeling cozy, content, loving, easygoing, secure, calm. And so essentially probably that feeling that you get after you meditate, you're going to be in that green state, right? So that's what he's talking about broadening your emotions and exploring them a little further.
I'm going to tag this mood chart in the show notes so that at least there's a link to be able to find this afterwards for those that want to explore it further. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you've done U, L, we've labeled it. Then what do you move on to from there?
Yeah, you move into the express side of things. So that's converting your emotions to words. That essentially improves your health. So you can talk about your problems or write them down. Find people with whom you feel safe being vulnerable with and talking about these feelings. This is where mental health practitioners, they thrive in this area to help you through this whole process, like labeling and so on, but how to express it. I feel like for myself personally, last night I sat with my husband afterwards and I'm like, man, like my throat. And he's like, yeah, what's going on with your voice? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, kind of sound a little like I smoked a pack of cigarettes. Like
right.
That's what like it's really raspy.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, this is what I'm feeling. And so I talked about it and I shared with him like my worries and my concerns, but also my excitement, and he just sat there and listened. He didn't tell me how to change what I was thinking or tell me, no, you shouldn't feel that way, or perk up, champ, you're doing great. He never did any of that. He just sat in the uncomfortable with me. Mm-hmm. And that's what you really need to find is allowing yourself to express what you're feeling and be okay with it.
Totally.
And so from there, you would move into regulate. So this is where experts recommend some strategies for regulating some emotions. So, for example, there's positive self-talk. There could be words of affirmation, breathing practice, meditation. I really like how Mark will talk about this meta moment where you pause, where you let your amygdala to hijack you. So that would be meaning you're going to say something and wish you could grab those words and put them back in your mouth.
Right.
So he calls this the meta moment, where you just pause and you ask yourself, what would my best self do in this moment? And just pause with it. You may not agree with what the person has said to you that may have triggered this emotion in you, but you control how you react to it.
Yeah.
So in this book, Mark talks about a variety of different ways of how to regulate your emotions, and I highly recommend diving into it because it's very deep and it's a good practice. And so my 3-year-old right now is losing her mind with emotions. She's feeling everything. And I look at her going, oh dear, you're so much like me, very much sensitive with your emotions. But I mean that in a positive way. Mm-hmm. Like I'm recognizing your feeling and you just don't know what to do with it, so you're going to have a meltdown.
Totally.
So that's not a good way to regulate your emotions, right? but it doesn't, I never tell her that she can't feel what she's feeling. So we're right now working on her recognizing what she's feeling, and then trying to, in her words, as a 3-year-old, understanding why she's feeling a certain way. So I can coax her to say, like prompt her by questions by saying, like, are you feeling tired? Are you hungry? Do you need a drink of water? So that she starts noticing what might have caused this emotional response for her. And then putting a label on it. So we're starting with the basic emotions, like, are you sad? Are you frustrated? Are you angry? Are you happy? And getting her to be able to say this. So then she actually turns around and will ask me, Mommy, are you sad?
Yes, because they're learning.
Yes.
Isn't that, like, miraculous?
It's so good. And daycares are putting this into action, like a lot of the licensed daycares, and it just brings so much joy to me. And so so then we'll talk about these emotions, and then how we are currently regulating them is when she's losing her mind, there's no way that you can reason with her. You can't reason with a 3-year-old anyways. You can try, but you'll go in when you're in
special tips on that. We would all be happy to hear them,
but I put together her own space in her room. So we have this canopy tent with some fluffy pillows, and this is her quiet space. And so anytime that she's feeling something where she feels this need to calm herself, I'll walk her down to her special space, because I never want her to feel like she's...
I want a special space. I think I need to create one for myself.
Right? But I don't want her to feel like she has to run and fly like flee from...
It's not a punishment.
No,
it's just a pause.
It's her meta moment, right? Like where she can pause and breathe. And so then I'll ask her, okay, do you need some time? Do you want to sit here for a little bit? And then I'll come back and we'll talk, and she'll often like nod her head yes, and she's crying like the ugly cry, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll come back and we'll hold hands and we'll take some nice deep breaths, and then we talk about what she felt, and so to help her regulate. So that's another example of how.
And do you know how many grown-ups, myself included, on many days, to be reminded of this practice of just taking a minute? Because I feel like we're all so used to moving at 1,000,000 miles a minute, and I'm saying this to myself, where it's on the days where I have recognized things about myself, I've taken care of myself, I've made sure that I've eaten, I've made sure I've had enough water, I've made sure I've had enough sleep. Like, this sounds basic, but those really are all of the little things that add up to potentially your day being really derailed when something is for sure going to come up. Like, I think sometimes you wake up in the morning and have the idea that a day is just, today is just going to be wonderful, and I can't imagine anything that's going to come up. And I don't know about you, but pretty much not a day goes by where there isn't at least something, whether you're in traffic, whether you've had somebody say something offensive to you, you've received an email that has just given you feelings, your kids are acting out, your spouse is driving you nuts, whatever the case may be, there's always something, and we could have 1,000 reactions a day of that could be negative rather than pressing pause. And I just love how this is such basic concept, obviously huge science behind all of this research, but that it can be presented in a way that somebody like myself, who is nothing to do with the medical field, can just implement this into mine and my children's life. So I hope that you listening today can check out the show notes, because the links are there for this book and the ruler method, as well as clicking through to Holistic Physiotherapy and Wellness to be able to find a team if that's something that you're searching for, or one person or many that can help on your emotional and mental health. So thanks for sharing all of that, Kim. That was
You're welcome.
Such a wealth of information. I cannot wait to to now re-implement some of these things, and just, it was a great reminder for myself.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome. I love being able to share what I've learned and express how I use it in my professional practice.
Oh, totally. And just as important as emotional health in the serious side of things is also trying to fit in some fun. And I always like to fit in some fun speed questions at the end of my interviews, because I love hearing the little details about someone's life that I would not necessarily know about you. So you ready? Here's the question.
I'm ready. Okay. I'm ready.
What is one thing that you do in the morning that sets the tone for your day?
I lay in bed and I take 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes is where I connect with my breath, and I just say to myself, what am I grateful for? And what do I want to do today? What's going to bring me to best self?
Oh, I love that. That's a brilliant 5-minute thing to do. What is your coffee order? Are you a coffee drinker?
I am. I'm trying to cut back, but I still drink coffee. I've cut it back to 1 cup a day, and I'm okay with that. So I love, just if we were to go into Tim's, it would be a medium coffee with half a cream.
Good for you. Yum. I limit mine to the morning as well, but I do let myself have 2. On a really stressful day, 3, which is probably not great, but I am trying to limit it to 2. What is something that you have in your purse for day-to-day, or something that you just can't live without when you're out and about or traveling or wherever you're going?
Honestly, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a health professional, but I absolutely have to have my water bottle with me at all times. I haul it everywhere. It's in my purse. It's in the stroller. It actually causes me anxiety if I don't have my water with me.
Right? That's so good. That keeps you in habit. I find that I'm only as an adult have I started drinking enough water, and I still notice on days when I'm not having my usual routine of getting up, working, being at my desk, all those other days are a little bit out the window with making sure that I drink enough, because it's so habitual, but I don't really carry it with me. So it's being at my desk is where I drink most of my water. Yeah,
for sure.
What is speaking of health and wellness, what is your favorite junk food?
I am a big lover of 5-cent candies, and specifically sour soothers.
Oh my word. I am all good with not indulging if it's not in my realm. If it is in the vicinity of my home, it has made its way from grocery shelves to shopping cart to entering my home, it's just over, done.
I know. Speaking of recognizing what your body does in certain situations, I know what sugar does to me, and what affects me, and so I will sit with it and be like, do I want this response? Yes, I'm okay with it. I will have this.
So you backwards think whether it's time to indulge in a sour soother. That's serious business.
Right? Oh dear. I know.
I love it. I wish I was so will-powered. Unfortunately, I usually have just the effects of it. I'm like, oh right, this is how it feels over and over again.
Totally.
What was the first concert or most memorable concert you've ever attended?
Well, my first concert that I can remember, I think it was Brooks and Dunn.
I love it.
I know, at the Minot, North Dakota State Fair when I was 10 or 12.
My word. I've been to that state fair.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that was my first concert, and I think my most memorable one, let me think here. It would either have to be Pearl Jam or Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, you saw Fleetwood Mac.
I did.
That's a good one on the repertoire.
Yeah, I saw that with my mom. Saw them. They were fantastic.
That's amazing. What is one thing that you absolutely love to do in your free time? Because you have such free time with 2 young children and a business to run. Just what else do you do for yourself?
Yeah, but you know what? I had 2 blissful hours to myself this morning, which is very rare. Very rare. And so My husband had taken our 3-year-old to her swimming lessons. Our 6-month-old was napping, a really nice, solid, long nap. So I had, instead of exercising, like some people would be drawn to, I'm in my healthcare plan right now is I'm trying to calm my nervous system and calm my mind. I'm really on a mental health and emotional wellness journey. And so I drew myself a nice hot bath. I played some specific music that is calming for my nervous system. I read an entry out of this book that I'm diving into. It's called The Book of Awakening, and it's a 1-page reflection, I guess like a story or a poem, and then it prompts you for reflection. And so I meditated in the hot water, and it was bliss. It was so good.
Oh my word, that sounds like absolute magical.
It was magical. It was very good.
Good
and
for
I had some essential oils going, and it was good.
Oh my word, those little blessings and the long naps happen, and all the things that you can do to feel better.
Right.
I love it. Where is your favorite travel destination, or somewhere that you cannot wait to go once the world starts opening up as we're used to again?
Totally. So my husband and I went to Maui for our honeymoon, and we spent 2 weeks there, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait to go back. It's one of my manifestations and goals that I'm working towards, where I can just be like, you know what, peace out, February. I'm going to Maui. Like that's what I want. Like before like towards the end of my career, where I, don't have children that are relying on me to be home.
Yes.
I want to be like, see you later, February. I'm going to Hawaii.
Well, I'll see you there, because that's exactly my plan as well. And I feel like this winter we are going to have to really be tapping into our ruler method in order to get through without being somewhere warm this winter.
I know.
So we already touched on this a little bit, but last question. Mm-hmm. What would be a few things that you would fit into your perfect day if you had more than 2 hours to yourself?
Right. I love when I have a slow and quiet start to my day, where I don't have little ones hanging on me or cartoons playing in the background, where I can check in on my agenda and mindfully plan my day. So that doesn't mean working on my to-do list. It would be more of, when do I want to go to a yoga class? And who do I want to go for lunch with, where I can have an intimate conversation with a friend without being distracted.
Having a happy hour cocktail, perhaps?
Yeah, exactly. And then spending time with my family, where like we go for a walk or go to the park. And then I really, 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 really miss dating my husband, where I would love to go on a date with my husband out and not worry to be back in an hour and a half. So,
you know what? That feels like a very attainable goal, and you are going to see that in the very near future, my friend.
I know.
I promise you that.
Totally.
So, thank you so much for being on the show today. I have so many things to think about, as I'm sure our listeners do, from hearing all of these wonderful nuggets of wisdom. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
Thank you so much for having me.
Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast, is a proud member of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network, which is supported by Connexus. Does money spark joy in your life or cause you stress? If you said stress, you're not alone. For 42% of Canadians, their biggest stressor comes from money. At Connexus, they care about your financial well-being. Money doesn't have to be stressful, and Connexus is here to help. The Connexus Money Talk blog provides expert advice, tips, and solutions for all life stages and events. Getting married, buying a house, budgeting, saving, they cover it all and more. And did I mention it's free? Check it out today at connexusmoneytalk.ca and start feeling confident and stress-free about your money. This show would not be possible without you, my incredible listeners. It would mean the world to me if you would subscribe to Celebrating Simple Life on Apple Podcasts or download and listen on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you choose to listen. If you really want to make my day, leave a review. These reviews, ratings, and sharing screenshots of podcast episodes that were engaging for you on your Instagram stories and tagging friends that you think should hear the episode too really helps the podcast grow. It makes me so happy that I often select reviews to read on the show, and if yours is chosen, you will receive a special gift from me. Thank you for being a part of my mission to connect stories of business and life. Cheers to Celebrating Simple Life.